A fragile alliance. David and Emily had been married for 10 years, their bond seemingly unshakable. Friends called them the perfect couple, always appearing happy at gatherings, always supporting each other's dreams. David worked long hours as an architect, often losing himself in blueprints and deadlines, while Emily poured her energy into building a successful online business. But beneath the polished surface of their marriage lay cracks, unspoken resentment, unmet needs, and the suffocating monotony of routine. One evening, as David burned the midnight oil at the office, Emily sat at home, scrolling through her phone. A notification popped up from an old friend, Lucas, someone she hadn't spoken to in years. His message was simple, innocent even. Hey, it's been a while. How have you been? What began as casual conversation quickly deepened. Lucas was charming, funny, and most of all, he listened. He seemed to understand the frustrations Emily didn't dare voice to David, the loneliness, the feeling of being invisible. Days turned into weeks, and their conversations grew more intimate. Lucas began sending her songs that reminded him of her, asking questions about her life that made her feel seen. The guilt crept in slowly, like a shadow she couldn't escape. But Emily justified it to herself. It's just talking. I'm not doing anything wrong, One Friday afternoon, Lucas suggested meeting for coffee. Emily hesitated. She knew this was crossing a line, but the temptation to feel alive, to feel desired, overpowered her guilt. They met at a small cafe on the other side of town, where no one would recognize them. Lucas was even more captivating in person, his laugh infectious, his attention magnetic. What started as coffee turned into a walk in the park, and then, to Emily's surprise, a kiss. It was brief but electric, a spark she hadn't felt in years. That night, Emily avoided David's questions about her day. She felt the weight of her actions pressing down on her, but couldn't stop thinking about Lucas. Their meetings became more frequent, their connection more physical. Each encounter chipped away at the fragile alliance she shared with David. But secrets have a way of unraveling. One evening, David found an unfamiliar name on Emily's phone. A message flashed on the screen, a simple asterisk, "I can't stop thinking about you." Asterisk. The confrontation was explosive. Emily tried to explain, stumbling over her words, but David's devastation was palpable. He demanded the truth, and when Emily confessed, their marriage hung by a thread. David left the house that night, his mind racing with questions. Could he forgive her? Did he want to? Emily, alone with her guilt, realized too late what she had risked for a fleeting sense of validation. As weeks turned into months, they attempted therapy, both trying to piece together the fragments of their relationship. Trust was a distant memory, but hope lingered. Their alliance was fragile, but perhaps, with time, it could become something stronger, if they both had the courage to rebuild. The months following Emily's confession were excruciatingly tense. Therapy sessions forced both of them to confront uncomfortable truths, not just about the affair but about the years of emotional neglect that preceded it. David admitted that his relentless focus on work had created a chasm in their marriage. He thought providing for Emily meant he was fulfilling his role, not realizing she craved his attention more than his financial security. Emily, in turn, acknowledged her betrayal went beyond the affair. She had withheld her feelings for years, allowing resentment to fester instead of seeking connection. But despite the clarity therapy offered, the path to healing was far from smooth. David struggled with intrusive thoughts, often imagining Emily and Lucas together. Every notification on her phone felt like a ticking time bomb. His trust had been shattered, and even the smallest gestures, like her staying late to finish work, triggered his suspicion. Emily, on the other hand, wrestled with her guilt. She wanted to prove her commitment to rebuilding their marriage, but no matter how many times she apologized or reassured David, she felt like she was falling short. One evening, during a particularly heated argument, David blurted out, "Why didn't you just tell me you were unhappy? Was he worth it? Was I worth so little to you?" The question hung in the air like a dagger. Emily's voice cracked as she replied, "It wasn't about him. It was about feeling like someone cared." And I know that's on me, David. I should have come to you. I should have fought for us instead of running away from what we had. That night marked a turning point. For the first time in months, they didn't go to bed angry. They stayed up talking, not arguing, not rehashing the past, but genuinely listening to each other. David admitted he wasn't sure he could ever fully trust Emily again, but he was willing to try. Emily promised to be patient, to earn back his trust no matter how long it took. As time passed, they began to rebuild their fragile alliance brick by brick. They set aside time for weekly date nights, something they hadn't done in years. They revisited the places where they had fallen in love, sharing laughter and rediscovering the connection they once had. But it wasn't just about romance. They worked on communicating honestly, even when the truth was uncomfortable. David learned to express his feelings instead of burying them in work, while Emily practiced voicing her needs without fear of rejection. One day, David surprised Emily with a weekend getaway to the mountains, a place they used to visit in their early years together. As they stood on the edge of a serene lake, David took her hand and said, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to try. With you?" Tears streamed down Emily's face as she whispered, "I want that too." Their journey wasn't perfect, and the scars of the past remained. But in choosing to stay and fight for their marriage, they discovered something they had nearly forgotten, a love resilient enough to weather the storm. A fragile alliance, yes, but one that could be fortified with time, effort, and an unwavering commitment to move forward together. Months turned into a year, and though the pain of the past hadn't completely faded, David and Emily were finding their footing in a new version of their relationship. The road was bumpy, marked by moments of doubt and hurt, but also glimmers of hope and renewed connection. One evening, David and Emily sat on the couch together, going through old photo albums. David stumbled upon a picture from their honeymoon, a candid shot of Emily laughing at something he had said. Her happiness in that moment seemed so pure, so unguarded. "Do you remember this?" David asked, his voice softer than usual. Emily smiled wistfully. "I do. You spent an hour convincing that waiter to teach you how to make that drink I loved so much. You wanted to surprise me later." David chuckled, though his laughter carried a trace of sadness. "I think I've forgotten how to surprise you." Emily turned to him, her expression tender. "You're surprising me now. Every day that you choose to stay, to try, David, that's the greatest surprise of all." The conversation marked a turning point. They started focusing less on what they had lost and more on what they could rebuild. Emily made a deliberate effort to stay transparent with David. She gave him access to her phone and email, not because he demanded it, but because she wanted him to feel secure. Over time, David checked less and less. He realized that trust couldn't be rebuilt through surveillance, but through consistent actions and open communication. David, in turn, began setting boundaries with work. He turned down late-night meetings and started coming home in time for dinner. One night, he surprised Emily by recreating her favorite dish from their honeymoon. They laughed as they reminisced, the sound filling the once tense silence that had haunted their home. Therapy continued to be a cornerstone of their healing. Their therapist suggested they each write a letter to the other, detailing their hopes for the future. David's letter was raw and honest. He expressed his fears about being hurt again, but also his desire to grow old with Emily, to build a legacy of love and resilience. Emily's letter was heartfelt, full of gratitude for David's willingness to forgive and fight for their marriage. She promised to never take him for granted again, to cherish the small moments, and to always choose honesty, even when it was hard. On their 12th anniversary, David and Emily renewed their vows in a small, private ceremony. It wasn't grand or elaborate, but it was deeply meaningful. Surrounded by a few close friends and family, they promised to honor the lessons they had learned, to love each other not despite their flaws but because of them. As they danced under the soft glow of string lights, David leaned in and whispered, "I think we're stronger now than we've ever been." Emily rested her head on his shoulder, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I think you're right." Their alliance was no longer fragile. It had been tested, cracked, and nearly broken, but it had also been reformed, stronger, deeper, and more enduring than before. Life after their vow renewal wasn't a perfect fairy tale, but it was real, and it was theirs. David and Emily learned that healing wasn't a destination but a journey, one they had to recommit to daily. Some days were smooth and easy. They found joy in the mundane, like cooking breakfast together or walking through their neighborhood hand in hand. Other days brought challenges, moments of doubt, old insecurities surfacing like ghosts. One such moment came when Emily received an unexpected message from Lucas. It was a short, apologetic note. Asterisk, I'm sorry for the part one played in hurting you and David. I hope you're doing well. Asterisk. Emily's chest tightened as she stared at the screen. Her immediate instinct was to delete the message and move on, but she paused. Hiding things, even small ones, had been a part of what led to the breakdown of their marriage. That evening, as David came home, Emily handed him her phone and explained what had happened. I didn't reply, and I don't plan to. But I wanted you to know. David's expression was unreadable for a moment, then softened. Thank you for telling me, he said simply. Though the moment passed quickly, it was a quiet triumph for them both. Emily had chosen transparency, and David had chosen to trust her again. Their marriage also became a source of inspiration for others. Close friends who had witnessed their struggles began seeking their advice. One couple even admitted they were on the brink of divorce, but decided to try therapy after seeing David and Emily's progress. How do you do it? A friend once asked Emily. Emily smiled, thinking about the many lessons they'd learned. We stopped trying to go back to who we used to be and focused on becoming who we're meant to be now. It's not easy, but it's worth it. David and Emily also made a conscious effort to keep their love alive. They planned surprise getaways, left little notes for each other, and started a tradition of sharing their favorite moment of the day every evening. Years later, their bond had deepened in ways they never thought possible. They watched their lives evolve, careers shifted, friendships changed, and new challenges arose. But through it all, they stayed united. On their 20th anniversary, as they sat on the porch of their home, watching the sunset, David turned to Emily. If someone told me years ago that we'd be here after everything, I'm not sure I would have believed them. Emily reached for his hand, her fingers lacing through his. I would have. Because even when we were at our worst, I never stopped believing in you. In us. Their fragile alliance had grown into an unshakable foundation. It wasn't perfect, but it was strong, honest, and deeply rooted in the choice to love each other every day. As David and Emily settled into the rhythm of their later years together, they reflected often on the journey that had brought them to this point. The cracks that once threatened to destroy their marriage had instead become the places where their bond had been fortified, the lessons carved deep into their shared story. One summer evening, their home buzzed with laughter and conversation as friends and family gathered for a barbecue. Their 2 children, now teenagers, were playing volleyball in the yard with their friends. Watching them, Emily felt a surge of gratitude. She and David had managed not only to save their marriage, but to create a home filled with love and resilience. After everyone left, David and Emily stayed outside under the twinkling stars. They sat on the swing David had built years ago, their fingers intertwined. Do you ever think about how close we came to losing this? David asked, his voice low. All the time, Emily admitted. But I think that's what keeps me grateful. We didn't just survive, David. We rebuilt something even better. David nodded, pulling her closer. I used to think forgiveness meant forgetting what happened. But now I know it's about choosing to move forward despite the hurt. Their lives continued to evolve in unexpected ways. David took on a mentorship role at his firm, stepping back from grueling projects to guide younger architects. Emily's business flourished, but she set boundaries to prioritize family time. They made it a point to travel more, revisiting old memories while creating new ones. On their trip to Italy, where they'd once dreamed of going in their youth, David surprised Emily with a small journal. Inside were his handwritten entries about their life together, moments he cherished, struggles they overcame, and hopes for the future. Emily teared up as she read it. You've been writing this all along. David smiled. Since our first therapy session, I realized that even the hard moments were part of what made us, us. Their love became a quiet, steady presence, a source of strength not just for themselves, but for others. Their children grew up seeing what it meant to fight for something worth saving, to value honesty and vulnerability. One evening, many years later, Emily and David celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. Their children, now adults, organized a small gathering. Speeches were made and toasts raised. When it was Emily's turn to speak, she looked at David with the same warmth she had when they first met. "Our story hasn't been easy," she began. "It's been messy and painful at times. But it's also been beautiful because we chose to write it together. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd still choose you, David." Every single time. David, his voice thick with emotion, responded simply, "And I'd choose you, Emily. Always." As they danced slowly in the dim light, surrounded by family and friends, they knew they had built something extraordinary, not a perfect love, but a resilient one. Their alliance was no longer fragile. It was timeless, a testament to the power of forgiveness, growth, and the unyielding choice to love. As the years passed, David and Emily's lives became a mosaic of memories, celebrations, quiet evenings, challenges, and triumphs. Their children grew into thoughtful, compassionate adults who carried with them the lessons of resilience and love they had witnessed in their parents. David and Emily became the unofficial, wise elders in their circle of friends, often sought out for advice. Neighbors would stop by for coffee, seeking their insight on relationships, careers, or simply life. One neighbor, a young couple on the verge of marriage, asked David and Emily what the secret to a lasting relationship was. David smiled, leaning back in his chair. "There's no one-size-fits-all answer. But if I had to say, it's this: never stop communicating, never stop learning about each other, and never take each other for granted." Emily added, "And don't be afraid to face the hard things. Love isn't about avoiding conflict, it's about facing it together. You'll make mistakes, we all do, but what matters is what you choose to do afterward." Their words carried weight because they were lived truths, forged in the fire of their own struggles. In their retirement, David and Emily embraced a slower pace of life. They spent mornings sipping coffee on their porch, afternoons volunteering at a local community center, and evenings immersed in books or movies. They often joked that they were busier in retirement than they'd ever been during their working years. One day, while going through old belongings in the attic, Emily stumbled upon a dusty shoebox. Inside were letters she and David had written to each other during the early days of their relationship, along with photos, mementos, and even their original wedding vows. She brought the box downstairs, and together they spent hours going through its contents. Laughter and tears mingled as they reminisced about their journey. David picked up one of the letters, his handwriting slightly faded, but still legible. "This was the first letter I wrote you after we met," he said with a soft smile. Emily took it, her eyes scanning the words. "You wrote, asterisk, I don't know where this road will take us, but I hope it's somewhere beautiful. Asterisk." David kissed her hand. "I think we've found it, don't you?" Emily nodded, her heart full. "We have." In their twilight years, David and Emily continued to cherish the life they had built together. Their love was a testament to the power of perseverance, the courage to face adversity, and the beauty of choosing each other over and over again. And when they were asked about their proudest achievement, they always gave the same answer: "We didn't give up." That's what we're most proud of. Their story, a once fragile alliance, became an enduring legacy, a reminder that even the deepest cracks can be filled with gold if you're willing to do the work together.